Listeners, we know you love Cricket et al., the podcast, and what's not to love, but you can also love us online and read Cricket et al., the Substack experience. Isn't that right, Pete?
That's right. It's a podcast, a website.
It's a way of life. cricketetal.com for all your cricket reading needs. It's Gideon Haig over here.
It's Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast. The Australian summer now stretches from horizon to horizon. There's cricket going on absolutely everywhere. We've got the beginning of the international season. The domestic season continues today. All sorts of calculations and recalculations about the composition of the Australian Test side. England are playing in T20 in New Zealand, even as we speak. There's the Women's World Cup on. It's podcast fever, Pete. Podcast fever.
You got the fever, have you, Gideon?
I got the fever, yeah.
It was kind of curious. It almost felt like that one-day game was a bit of an intrusion into the sort of more compelling domestic cricket that's going on at the moment. But I detached myself. Wasn't much of a game, was it? As one of our listeners said on Substack, all filler, no killer. That one.
Even then, it was a very short ODI. You know, it was a T20 specifications ODI.
Yeah. No, they were amusing wildly in the Substack group. I think Michelle Round thought that somebody's cat had stood in wet paint and walked over their uniforms. Did you take the new uniforms? Had the wattle on them. But look, it wasn't a complete bust. I mean, this was an historic game in some ways because we saw the great Virat Kohli interviewed at length. Indeed. That is a rare thing, Gid.
That was unusual, wasn't it? Looking very expansive and very relaxed and very accessible all of a sudden. And wouldn't you be relaxed if you'd spent the last 6 months in the UK with your wife and kids? He looked like he was in very mellow form. Unfortunately, he was a bit mellow with a bat too. He kind of couldn't stick or twist. And he's picked up a duck, and Rohit Sharma's failed as well. So it was a bit of an anticlimax, the coming of the two great players out of their hiatus since the Champions Trophy.
Come on, that Virat Kohli nicking off outside the off stump. It's the Virat of old. That's the Virat we love, Gideon.
Yeah, I guess so.
Clearly, Fox exploited their link through Ravi Shastri, who was his coach, and they have a lot of respect for each other. Those two, don't they?
They do.
To pull that interview in the break, it reminded me a little of the famous interview on Sachin's last tour of Australia. Do you recall that one? Sachin had taken a vow of monastic silence and refused every request to speak, including one at the Saka dinner. They made a presentation to him at the Saka dinner, and basically he used Ricky Ponting was his hand puppet. Ricky spoke for him on behalf of. But Virat's a bit more forthcoming. I was interested in the way he spoke about Australia. I think it was genuine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the affection he feels for this country, because the contempt he felt from Australian crowds really sort of hardened him as a cricketer and brought the best out of him, which is a story that Ravi Shastri tells as well. That they liked the way cricket was done here. And Virat says, if you go out and sort of 80,000 people are baying for your blood and calling you this and calling you that, it feels really sweet when you thrive. And he said he always felt extra motivation when he played against the Australians.
Yeah. But I mean, you now have to wonder, don't you, that how many more of these days are we going to see? Are they going to last until the next ODI World Cup? Both Rohit and Virat, that's the only format they're still playing. That the ODI World Cup's not for another 2 years, by which time Virat will be in his 40th year and Rohit will actually be 40. And when you're not playing every format of the game, when you're not sort of it's very difficult to find that happy medium, isn't it? You either seem to be playing too much or playing too little. First ODIs for 7 months, they did both look a bit rusty, as indeed did India, I thought. They kind of...
Australia, do you mean? Or India?
I think
the whole Indian side.
Yeah, I think the Indian side, I think they... this was Perth, and in Perth you expect certain conditions, and I don't think they picked a team that reflected those conditions. When you're picking Sundar and Axar Patel, I guess you don't have Hardik Pandya available, and you're leaving out Kuldeep. It does seem like you're playing for somewhere else, and you could see that little bit of extra bounce, that little bit of extra carry, that little bit of rain around, that little bit of extra greenery. When you don't have Bumrah and you go long in your batting, that does actually, I think, you are playing a bit of a catch up from the get go.
Yeah, I think you're right. And going back at that point about, I think I saw somewhere on social media, it was only last week that Virat actually left London and went to India. You've got to wonder about what sort of preparation, if any. He kept talking about his fitness, didn't he, in the interview? But you wonder how much real cricket preparation you're getting. And so he, perhaps more even than the rest of those players, you arrive in Perth, and that's a rude introduction to Australia. We always talked about Brisbane as the introduction, for visiting teams. But Perth these days, there's that deck, if that's the one-day deck at that stadium, the telephone stadium, what's the test deck going to be? But more curious, is this ability now for cricket to have, I mean, was it ever thus, Gids, that you have a chap like Virat who spends 6 months of the year in London and then shows up for one format? Australia has a similar but not as perhaps dramatic situation with Steve Smith. There's been some debate around that. Now Steve has I think he may have only arrived from New York last week. I mean, he's going to get plenty of preparation for the Shield side, but I have heard cricketers say that, or cricket people say that he's taking the piss by doing that. I get the sense that Virat's taking the piss by doing it, frankly. I don't think you can live in England 6 months of the year, swing by home, hook up with the team, and then go on a tour. I don't think it's as much of a question with Smith, but getting to my broader point, it's this ability now it's this reality now that cricket administrators, if they want to keep players and they want to extend players' careers, they have to allow them this license to do perhaps what they will. I mean, you see an example of it with with Zampa in New South Wales, where I believe he was introduced to the New South Wales facilities when he showed up for a game there recently, after being on the books for 2 to 3 years, because he lives up north. He's obviously not playing in this game, but in fact he's having another baby. I noticed. I saw his wife the other day. Yeah. Didn't want to say anything, but when I saw he's having paternal leave.
Well, I guess players have their personal welfare to look after and their professional welfare, and there is a blurred space in between where how you're feeling personally can affect you professionally, but sometimes that very state of mental equilibrium that you're seeking in your personal life actually takes some of the edge off your competitive zeal and your professional preparedness. These are waters that cricket's only strayed into in the last 4 years, when the calendar's become so completely fragmented, and you have a greater ration of players now playing cricket well into their late 30s, when their personal lives are a great deal more complicated, and the options that they have are a great deal more various. I think we're all finding out things that we haven't previously expected, or scenarios that we haven't necessarily planned for at the moment. And it's going to be a while before cricket stabilises and everyone finds their own ideal. And the ideal for one player will not be the same as it is for another.
And it's a little more complicated than perhaps it was before this, let's call it the professional era. And what does that date back to? Perhaps post-World Series cricket. Can we call that the professional era? You've now got players who are playing longer, and so you are now dealing with people who have children.
Yes.
And who, it pretty much in the past, by the time the kids came on, it wasn't a bloke's job anyway, when we're talking about male cricket. You were giving it up, weren't you? Zampa being out, I don't know if one thing led to the other, but it was good to see Matt Kuhneman get a game.
Yeah. And he's ended up getting hit for 6 his last 2 balls, and he still ended up with respectable figures. He got Sundar and he got Axar, and he mixed it up beautifully yesterday. He had his length absolutely right and varying his pace beautifully. So Australia lacked for nothing in the absence of Zampa. He's a player he's added a cubit to his span in the last 18 months. There's a lot to like about Matthew Kuderman now.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of frustration. He's had to be very, very patient, but he obviously fits in really well into that Australian setup. Question would be whether he could sustain a career as a long-term finger spinner for Australia as a successor to Nathan Lyon in Australia.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't rule it out, actually. I wouldn't rule it out.
There's a bit of competition there, isn't there, which is good to see.
Yeah.
Rocketcioli, or whatever his name is, from WA. Of course.
Todd Murphy bowled well in the last Shield game. Yeah.
And Todd Murphy bowled really well in that Shield game. I mean, basically he won that game for Victoria, didn't he? With taking those wickets.
But for all that the game is new and shiny, there are certain eternal verities that you just have to love. Like how wonderfully original it is to have rain in Perth. It was fantastic. Those guys with the covers, they looked strikingly accomplished and professional considering how little practice they have, and also how unusual it is to lose 16 consecutive tosses. I mean, you've got to love that about India, don't you? Now, I looked it up before, Pete. The odds of losing a fair coin flip 16 times in a row are 1 in 65,536.
65,536.
That's pretty.
It's across a couple of captains, is it?
It is across a couple of captains. And, of course, you're not calling all the time, so you're not always getting the call wrong yourself. It was Shubman's call yesterday, and he lost to Mitchell Marsh.
Oh, that's true. But, but it
does
mean you're cursed all the time, doesn't it?
It does mean you're cursed all the time.
What happened in the past life that you've hit this patch? Yeah.
He's unlike Joe Darling, who famously called incorrectly 5 times in a Test series against F.S. Jackson in England in 1905, and was so dismayed by this that when they captained each other against each other in a tour match, he turned up to the toss naked from the waist, saying that he was going to wrestle Jackson for the toss. And then when they did toss, he lost again.
he tapped out, did he?
I was actually looking up some great toss records. So
of course
I looked
you were. Of course you were.
Mike Brearley's book, The Ashes Retained, in 1978-9. Mike Brearley, he won 1 of 6 tosses in Australia. Yeah. He won 1 of 5 state game tosses. He lost all 3 one-day international tosses, and apparently Graham Yallop had 17 tosses that summer and won 15 times, and still managed to lose the Test series 5-1. And it made Brearley think of course, in that erudite way that Brearley has of the great scene in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, where he tosses it 95 times in a row and calls heads and it comes down tails. And apparently the odds of that are 1 in 5 octillion.
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 Right. Yeah. Right.
Anyway, you can tell I've had a bit of fun looking around at the antiquity of coin tosses. Okay. But look, it's got to change sometimes, doesn't it, Pete? What are the odds? What are the odds on Shubman Gill winning the toss during the next ODI?
Well, it doesn't have to change,
really.
It
doesn't change. Of course, it's still 1 in 2.
How many zeros in an octillion? Quick. Anyway, I came across the nonillion in my New York word puzzle the other day. I think that's 30 zeros.
Right.
Yeah. Well, nonillion. Yeah.
Well, Shubman's working his way up to that.
Anyway, so it wasn't much of a game, was it? No. But for the Test fan, I'm taking away that is going to be a bloody lively wicket again next summer. Of course, India jumped Australia in Perth last summer, and in fact, Virat was the guy who got the great 100, didn't he?
Yep, he did.
Along with the young fella,
yes.
as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know, but I get boyishly excited when Virat Kohli's in the country. And I'm sorry to the other bloke, I just don't get as excited about Rohit. I mean, all due respect, I love him, love the way he plays cricket, but Virat's just got that something, hasn't he?
He does. He does. It was good to see Josh Philippe back last night.
Good call. Good call.
Who's, I guess he now finds that he's third in the pecking order behind Carey and Inglis. Hasn't played for 4 years. It doesn't seem as long, but of course he was on that terrible Australian tour of Bangladesh and West Indies where we absolutely got thumped everywhere. He's 28 now, and I guess in some respects he's working towards his cricket prime. I've seen him playing in domestic cricket the last few years. He still looks like a pretty complete player. He's got a really sound defence. He's got a lot of bells and whistles. Not a lot can go wrong with his game. Might be better for him if he didn't keep so much, but he kept very well last night, and I guess that does add a quiver to his. Oh, he got 100 in that Australia A game, the one where Sam Konstas got that 100 as well. And we're all so preoccupied with Sam Konstas that we rather ignored that Philippe got 123 not out. I like him as a cricketer. I reckon he's been a bit typecast as a short form player. I think there's a little bit more blue sky to Josh Philippe.
Ricky Ponting used to say that, didn't he?
Right.
He did. He picked him very early.
Yeah. Matthew Renshaw was back last night, and he picked up a nice little tidy not out, although he was dropped by KL Rahul towards the end.
Is he another one that we were in indoor with, I think, wasn't he?
We were.
Yeah. It's a good chap, Matt Renshaw.
Yeah, nice fella.
I see Greg Chappell speaking very highly of him in an excellent piece that I might have put a link to in my last post on et al. Over the weekend. But he likes him and thinks he could be there and thereabouts for Test selection, or he should be there and thereabouts for Test selection. Other takeaway.
I was going to say, I met his parents a few years ago.
Yeah,
Matthew Renshaw's parents from England. We were in the same cafe in Sydney before the Test match, and I noticed this man was leafing through a copy of Stroke of Genius. I thought, oh, that's a very erudite man over there. I'll go over and say hello. And it turned out to be Matthew Renshaw's dad. And his mum and dad, they're fantastic. They're proper cricket. Proper cricket.
I've met them too,
They're just absolutely brilliant. And I think I actually said to him at the time, I think your son's going to go really well. I think there's a lot to him. There's a really lot to like about him as a cricketer. I guess he's kind of marked time a bit since then, but this could be an opportunity for him, as Greg was saying the other day.
And look, we found a lot to talk about for a game that had nothing happened. But Mitch Marsh, he's a fascinating character, isn't he? I would love to be in a cricket team that captained by Mitch Marsh. That just looks like fun. Now, I remember Kate from Cricket Australia telling me years ago that at Christmas lunch, when the players have their Christmas lunch together, the Marsh table is the table you want to be at. That's the best table. And I reckon if Mitch, I want to be in a team that Mitch Marsh captains. I love his approach when he's captaining. He seems very free. He's saying that at the moment too. Like, people are talking to him about, potentially playing in the Ashes. He says, not thinking about that at all. And that seems to be the key, I think, for a guy like Marsh, because the world can get on top of him, can't it? Very quickly. Yeah. He can sort of, and he got into a pretty dark place, I think, last time he was around the Test team with failures and things like that. It'd be great to see him get maybe one more chance, and it's a possibility. Yeah, they haven't taken their eyes off Mitch Marsh completely in Australian cricket.
He's an interesting instance, isn't he, Marsh, for a player who kind of exudes a sense of relaxation and ease. He is a player who has paid attention to what the world has been saying about him. You probably remember that presser that he gave at the Oval in 2019 where he took the 5 for, and it was actually a good moment for him, but he immediately began to talk about how he was the most hated cricketer in Australia, how so many people didn't like him. And he really felt that. I was actually a bit surprised about that because I didn't feel the same way about it. But it was clearly it had got under his skin and in his head. And you actually wrote an interesting piece last week, Pete, about
What?
or actually over the weekend. No, about Sam Konstas and the fact that you feel in some respects that people are death riding Sam Konstas, that they're getting a certain degree of Schadenfreude from his failures at the top of the domestic season. Can you talk us through your thought processes there?
Before we move on, though, from Marsh, I think Marsh was quite right to say that. I don't think I'd ever seen, well, I had seen one other player cop that much criticism in their career. And, and actually that was as a collective, the Marsh brothers. The sort of the social media, the fans' response to the Marshes being around cricket around that period was extremely negative.
Interesting.
And the only other time I saw it was with Watto, to a degree, where there's a lot of negativity around Watto. I wonder if it's a function, particularly with Mitch, of being the all-rounder and probably exposing yourself on two fronts to a degree. And also the expectation we have of all-rounders, what they can score. But if you go back, Watto had a very good career by the end of it, but you wouldn't have known it from the commentary around his career, and ditto Mitch Marsh at times. But Mitch learned to just cut that off. He got off social media, freed his mind, and has been a lot happier for it. The Konstas thing's interesting. Look, I think there's a lot of valid criticism of Konstas, but I just got a text and I had a phone conversation with someone. I thought, these people are actually relishing his failure. Now, I wondered if that's a pretty small sample size, 2 people I spoke to, but I did the rounds, actually. I rang around cricket writers and things like that, and I said, there is a sense that people are happy when their prophecy that Konstas will be a failure appears to be fulfilled. And I find that unseemly. You find that around players who sometimes, when they have a test career or a cricket career, and they go through a bad patch, people start death riding them. They just want them out of the team. I just think it's way too early to have. I mean, I think it's a pretty poor response by cricket fans. Sure, the kid's got a lot to learn. There's no doubt about that. I don't think he's test ready at the moment. I'm not absolutely sure that's his fault. It's extraordinary circumstances, his career. Some of it is that interstate rivalry, the old baggy green, baggy blue stuff. I'm not another freaking kid from New South Wales who plays one Shield game and you've got the baggy green, you may as well play, which essentially was his story. And part of it would be a function of people like me, celebrating.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, Peter,
but okay, stand back. Every single fucking cricket fan in the world on Boxing Day, when that guy was batting, fell in line. Yeah. Do you think I've created a sort of straw man argument here?
No, I mean,
I'm not calling for him. I'm not saying he should be in the Test team. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like the tone of some of the reactions around when he doesn't, when it doesn't work out for him. Yeah.
This time last year, it was all, I have seen the future, and his name is Sam Konstas, and now it's,
What, you're right. One sentence. One sentence.
There was all.
I actually squibbed it. I squibbed it. I said, it's incumbent on me to write this, so I will. So, I was a bit postmodern on it, mate. That's my
it is. I mean, look, it is to do with the environment. The environment it now does lurch from extreme to extreme. There is a free-floating supply of hype that kind of temporarily concentrates itself in fashionable individuals, and then there's a kind of a proportional overcorrection that's amplified by social media, and that's all part of the challenge of modern cricket because it's part of the challenge of modern life. Now, of course, he's been over-promoted. Now, here's a guy who's made, I looked at his record before, it's 1,321 runs in 42 outs. if you take out the 152 and 105 that at Cricket Central last year, which
my favourite thing, if you take out those times he succeeded, his failure is in headlines. Yeah.
If you take out the one game in which he succeeded, then his average slips back to 26.6 in 42 other innings. Now, yes, you're right. He did make a third 100 in Lucknow recently for Australia. We mentioned that game before.
Flat track, but still. Yeah.
1,119 runs fell for 11 wickets in 4 days. Right. So, you got to wonder about the merit of those runs.
Yeah.
I think, the environment on social media is changing year on year. And I think it's amplifying these extremes. Not even Watto.
It's a really good point
had to put up with this during his career. Watto got a fair bit of flaming on social media, but it didn't lurch from one extreme to the other in the same way that it did with Sam Konstas.
Didn't his front pad have a social media account at some stage?
I think it might have, but
if it didn't, it should have. Yeah.
But at the same time, no one made extravagant claims for Watto during his career. He never got that high. I think a lot of the social media on Watto was just pretty much, every time he failed, people would pile on, but they didn't kind of exaggerate his, they didn't sort of go into bat for him in the same way as people went into bat for Sam Konstas.
Well, very few people have succeed at the first instance on a stage like that.
No, exactly.
It is a curse, isn't it?
It is.
To succeed so young and so extravagantly when perhaps your game isn't quite ready yet. No. You've been thrown in to do a job and you haven't done the job.
What do you make of Greg's argument? I think there's actually something to this. That what was the point of taking Konstas to Sri Lanka if you weren't going to play him? What was the point of opening with Travis Head when you had an opportunity to give Konstas 2 test matches against middle-ranked opposition in conditions that would have been probably good for him to familiarise himself with? Did we take an expedient step there? Were we not thinking in the long term? Yeah. Because his year would have looked different, wouldn't it? If he'd played those 2 test matches in Sri Lanka, maybe got a 50 somewhere, might have gone into the World Test Championship final, might have made a better fist of playing in the West Indies if he'd had the opportunity to kind of bed himself down. As it was, he was left out a bit pointlessly. What was the point of taking him to Gaul to bat in the nets for 2 weeks?
A trick was missed, Gideon. Absolutely, for a short-term expediency, and there was, and in a way, it did him no favours because there was already that doubt in the water about his failures in Shield cricket after the Test innings. So people seemed to start getting off him really quickly. I think maybe they thought they were doing him a favour, that playing in that sort of Sri Lankan conditions was just too big an ask for a 19-year-old who wouldn't have had a lot of experience, but would have had some. But they were wrong because that turned out to be a fill your boots kind of experience over there. And you have to ask yourself, a trick was missed. We may still have ended up in the same situation. And he may have been dropped before the end of the West Indies, but a chance to give him 2 tests there and the World Test Championship and the 3 West Indies tests. And then we would have known a hell of a lot more than what we know right now about him and where he could have got to. You can go and look, selection's very difficult, but you can make the same argument that, tricks have been missed there around that whole openers scenario. Warner played on and on and on, well past his best. I think there's an argument that Usman is perhaps, some will argue that Usman is past his best now and probably shouldn't be playing these Ashes, but there's nobody else. I note that Mark Taylor said that he'd like to see, he's got him up there, but he'd like to see him score runs. He's not a lock, according to Mark Taylor. I think he is, and I think he could be valuable, and I see his value. But Australian cricket finds itself in a situation where it doesn't have any successors to David Warner and Usman Khawaja. Now, that's not necessarily the selector's fault. Selectors cannot invent a successor, and successors will have to learn on the job. We're not going to get a David Warner like that, although we thought we might have had one with Konstas at the MCG last year. But anyway, what's your 11 for the Ashes, Giz?
I've already picked it, but they're not going to pick that one because apparently Smith's not going to bat at number 3. That's fine.
Smith bats at 4. Mate. Smith bats at 4.
Yeah.
So,
and Labuschagne, it looks to me like Labuschagne bats at 3 now, and it looks to me like Weatherall is inked in as partner to Khawaja. He's done absolutely everything right. I think he's in the pink of form. I think he's. We'll see after the next round because he's come into the junction, which has been a little bit livelier than in recent seasons. That will be a good test for him against Boland and against O'Neill. So, but I really like the look of him, and we'll check back here after that round. Yeah. But that's the way it feels at the moment. That's the scenario that's playing out. Yeah. All the other potential candidates are eliminating themselves, aren't they?
They are, yeah. What's happened at the junction? Is it because you're spending time in St Kilda watering that deck or something? It was a billiard table from fence to fence, including the centre square before.
Well, I think it's been a problem for them the last few years. You just can't get results. Yeah. So I think the word's gone out. Let's make it a little livelier. That always helps. It hasn't hurt Jake Weatherall to be playing down at Bellerive. It didn't hurt Ed Cowan when he went down to play at Bellerive. When it's a little bit livelier, top 3 batters do get the chance to learn a bit about themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And did you get down to a bit of the Shield game? That New South Wales game was a good game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good game. Yeah,
I thought New South Wales had it in the bag, but then, as we said before, Todd Murphy and of course Boland as well.
It's a great place to watch cricket, by the way. It's a fantastic ground. There was a nice little crowd. There was a really good atmosphere. The quality of the cricket was pretty high. The ascendancy fluctuated, and Victoria won. So everyone went home satisfied.
Oh, look at that little grin on your face, you Victorians. I'm a Victorian too.
Now, overnight, Pete.
What happened?
In the Women's World Cup.
Oh, yes.
India lost their 3rd game on the bounce.
They did.
And Heather Knights spirited England into the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup. And now you've got 5 candidates to play in the 4th semi-final spot. It's turned into a fascinating final instalment when you assume that India would simply march straight through in front of their home crowds and in their home conditions. But there's all to play for.
Yeah, India, New Zealand, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or Pakistan can take that 4th place. I'm assuming they've each got 2 games left, have they? 2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Whereas England, Australia, and South Africa are a lock for the semi-finals. I think England can count themselves pretty lucky. They got a point out of that game when they were deep in the blue against with Pakistan, was it?
They were.
Yeah. Very hints of the 2017 World Cup final at Lords, England versus India. Yeah. England posted a pretty pasty total, I thought, in that game, and also in this one. They should have scored a lot more than they did. I thought India bowled very well to them.
It's certainly at the back end. They only made 36 in the last 5 overs, didn't they? But Heather Knight did bat absolutely beautifully, didn't she? I mean, I'm surprised it's only her 3rd ODI 100. It's her 300th international. The sweeps that she plays, the sweeps reminded me a bit of Graham Gooch against India in the 1987 World Cup semi-final. She's got this lovely little dainty high grip, and she gets tremendous bat swing out of that. And she played a beautiful 6 off the legs, but it was mostly the sweeps. And if you're a spinner, there's nothing worse than being swept. It's incredibly disruptive. And even Shree Charani last night looked a little bit bothered. She's bowled beautifully in this tournament so far, but Heather Knight got on top of her. I mean, of course, the risk for them is that they are very heavily dependent on Knight and Skyver Brunt. The standard falls away a little bit from there, but in the end, India haven't done all that much wrong. Mandana and Harmanpreet and Deepti Sharma, they've all come off, but Lindsay Slith came through at the end and closed it out, and India basically ran out of puff towards the end.
Yeah, they did. It was a curious game, wasn't it? I mean, it looked like a good wicket to score on. It was a bit slow early. That's what Heather Knight said. She's very she's a charismatic cricketer, isn't she? Heather Knight? Yeah. I really love the way she speaks about the game. But you talked about it was Chirani bowling towards the end. There was having difficulty with the Dew, I think.
Yes,
and bled a few more runs than perhaps they would have liked in those last overs. Possibly cost them the game, but still, you've got to chase down 288 if you're a serious cricket team on a good wicket, and and it's not against it's not against the greatest attack in the world, but I love the way Harmanpreet Kaur goes about cricket. I just like seeing her on the field. Yeah, I like the way she marshals her troops. She's very good. But, it's been a curious World Cup. It does seem to be dragging on. They go for a long time, these World Cups, don't they?
I don't mind it, actually. I think the suspense has really built. The intrigue has really built. I think there's been the worst thing that can happen in a World Cup is that you basically know your five. You know your top four teams early on, and basically everything else is kind of is a bit irrelevant. You're going through the motions, but the weather's added a bit of intrigue to it. I noticed there are 2 more games in Colombo. What are the odds of those going ahead? That's whoever had the idea of scheduling cricket in Colombo at this time of year. They need their heads read.
Cricket administrators, Gideon. Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk
it? Who'd have thunk it? And there's actually some really good games coming up, even though they can have no impact on the composition of the semi-finals. Australia play England, of course, at indoor on Wednesday. That's the clash of the 2 unbeaten teams, and then we play South Africa on Saturday, who've only lost 1. So that's 2 tough games for Australia coming into the semi-finals. Good semi-final preparation.
Yeah, it's what they need, and they might get the loss they need going into the semi-finals. The loss you need.
It's been interesting to see left arm spin. I do like watching left arm spin. I've enjoyed watching all the left arm spin in this tournament. Sophie Eccleston, I know she's got 10 wickets at 11, and she's going at 3.27 and over.
That's really? Yeah.
Malaba's taken 11 at 15. Chirani, although she got collared the other night, she's bowled well. Ranawira from Sri Lanka's bowled well. The leggies haven't been quite as effective. Alana King and Amelia Kerr, they haven't been quite as haven't got as much purchase. The wickets have been pretty flat. But if you like left arm spin, this really has been the tournament for you.
Yeah, it's quite a masala of wickets that and conditions that they're confronted with in this tournament. But yeah, you're right. It is a good tournament. What else were we going to talk about, Gideon? Did you make a list? Have you got that shopping list of items to discuss?
Well, we could talk about, if we want to go into sort of earnestness area and contention area, there is the cancellation of or the withdrawal of Afghanistan from that T20 international series next month in Rawalpindi and Lahore as a result of those that cross-border attack in the Urgun in Afghanistan, which seems to have claimed the lives of 3 cricketers. Desperately sad and unfortunate, but quite interesting scenarios have played out since then. Pete, have you been watching that?
I've had one eye on it, but I think you've got it in front of you now, haven't you? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So they've brought in who's come in to replace them in the Tri Series?
I don't know, actually. I don't think they have been replaced because the announcement's was so quick. What I did find interesting was the ICC immediately making a statement about this.
Thank you. Yes.
In solidarity with the Afghanistan Cricket Board, which I think probably only really makes sense in terms of Jay Shah's links to the BJP. The BCCI then made a statement standing in solidarity with the Afghanistan Cricket Board, the cricket fraternity and the families of the departed players during this moment of profound grief, and condemns this ghastly and unwarranted attack. All fair enough and absolutely true. but it also only makes sense in terms of the BCCI now being the sporting wing of the BJP.
That's unfair, Gideon. They were separate statements with the same. might have had a shared sentiment, but they were separate statements.
And then, of course, the Pakistan government has since come out and complained that it's all false flag, it's all disinformation. Pakistan's the victim of cross-border terrorism. It rejects the ICC's selective, biased and premature comment that advances the disputed allegation that 3 Afghan cricketers died in an airstrike. And the ACB has then come out and expressed its sincere gratitude to the ICC and maintained that it's contiguous with its stance of keeping politics out of cricket. We all love keeping politics out of cricket, don't we? And ultimately, it just becomes an extremely confused environment where, I mean, you've got to say, I mean, a lot of this dates back to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan when Pakistan started acting as an armourer to the Mujahideen on behalf of the US, became a sponsor of Al-Qaeda. You've got Iran as a kind of an entrepreneur of Islamic violence in that area. You've now got Pakistan accusing India of succouring these the Taliban. Afghanistan, they're saying that Afghanistan's become a proxy of India. And now, unfortunately, Pakistan's talking about the expulsion of Afghan nationals who are in Pakistan. It does remind me of that line that was allegedly attributed to Donald Rumsfeld in Iraq, who said that, just remind me who are the bad guys again.
Well, I was going to say that because when you were talking about this at the start, you were sort of so Afghanistan are the victims, therefore they're the good guys in this situation. I'm not so sure. I would have some sympathy with Pakistan's point of view too, that, is this necessarily true? Like, who's telling us this? Yeah.
Sure.
And hasn't there been haven't they pulled the plug on the internet completely in Afghanistan? The last time they have,
I think they do it every so often just to make people suffer all the more.
I've got a friend called Lynn O'Donnell who does a Substack that's basically around Afghanistan, where she was a correspondent for many years. I might have to get her on to explain all of this to us, Gideon.
Yeah, well, that would be good actually, because I would. I mean, it's obviously a bigger game, isn't it, than India and Pakistan muscling up to each other in Kashmir. These are big, belligerent countries with long and porous borders, decades of ethnic and religious enmity, and extensive subterranean agendas too.
Absolutely, and now that there's a third party in there that they're squabbling over, it doesn't bode well for the future, does it? But I completely understandable that Afghanistan and Pakistan are not going to play each other now.
No. Yeah. But it might be time to get our friend. It might be time to get our friend Sushant Singh to weigh in on this, on Cricket et al., who has written many stimulating pieces on the subject of Indian Pakistan.
Brilliant pieces, and I'm glad you mentioned Sushant Singh, because global politics has actually has come into the Cricket et al. World, Gideon, because we cannot ship our T-shirts to Sushant in the USA because of Donald Trump's fucking tariffs. So, Sushant, never fear. We think we've found a way to smuggle this sort of contraband into the country. So they're going to mail them to me, and I'm going to call them Christmas presents or something like that, and send them to the USA. But yeah, that's a good idea to get Sushant to do that, I think.
Yeah. And just a reminder, we should say that this is only one leg in the trousers of the Cricket et al. Operation. Cricket et al. The Substack goes from strength to strength, and up to and including Craig Sargent Day on the 1st of November is your last opportunity to subscribe to the original bargain price of $20 per calendar month or $100 per annum, because at midnight we'll be turning up the dial to $30 per calendar month and $124 per annum in honour of Craig Sargent's highest test score.
But if you have a subscription, do not panic. Nothing changes. We're not putting the price up on you. We're not. Yeah,
because we don't deal well with change either. That's the way we roll on Cricket.
That is exactly the way we roll. This what are we? One leg of two legs of a pair of trousers metaphor. Run that past me again. What's this?
I'll need to workshop it. I'll workshop it with you offline.
I'm a bit confused by that. Like, since if I'm the left leg and you're the right leg, what does that make Sam Perry? Or is it a Rolf Harris type situation with the extra leg? Hey, speaking of Substack, our friend Bernard Fanning started a music Substack called The Tea Room. Yes. Well, and he's done 2 posts.
Right.
Possibly tea rooms. I wondered if it was named after those tea rooms in the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens opposite that pub where we did the podcast with him that time.
Yep.
But in his first one, he's kind of riffing on songs that he's written and recording processes and people he's played with. But he starts with a reflection on the good old days of, of paper and tape and film and dial-up internet and us. Somehow that leads him into curmudgeons like us who are on Substack.
Sooner or later, we all meet on Substack, Bernard.
Yeah.
It's come over to the dark side. It is your destiny.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're looking to read Bernard's stuff, it's over there on Substack called The Tea Rooms.
Right.
And it's got a link to Cricket et al. In there, so we better we better return the favour. And I do need to get a bit of music trivia off my chest because I haven't had a chance to speak to you for ages. This showed up on the front door yesterday. This is very exciting. I mentioned that I was going to see Cammy Cautious and the Wrestlers.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That's their new EP, Can of Worms. Absolute banger. Perhaps the best single I've got since I bought Susie Quattro's Can the Can with the money I'd saved from my paper round 50 years ago.
Wow.
That showed up on the front door. But anyway, I saw the band at the Bolo. They're sensational. I was chatting to them out the back and turns out Will, the drummer, although he says I'm not a drummer, I'm a guitarist who plays drums, is a keen cricketer and played at the same club that Pat Cummins played in up in the Blue Mountains. They're 3 kids from the Blue Mountains, very nice kids. Right. And Cammy's name is not Cammy, it's Sarah. She kept telling me, and I kept forgetting all night. So she's Cammy to me. Fantastic. But there you go. Yeah, there's a little bit of music trivia for you.
Yeah, Molchat Doma coming to Melbourne in December too. Quite excited about that. The Belarusian post-punk band of which my daughter is immoderately fond.
Oh, yes, you've played me the clips of them before too, aren't they? They're epic.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could get Sue along to that one. I got Sue along to Ed Cooper and Jim White last weekend and ran into another Substack subscriber, Todd Slater. Right. I ran into him at the station. He was keen that we get Robert Forster on the podcast because apparently Robert Forster of the Go-Betweens, as you all know, is a cricket fan.
He is a cricket fan.
I didn't know that.
He wrote a lovely piece about Doug Walters in Christian Ryan's Australia Portrait of a Cricket Country.
Good on you. You're right. Todd mentioned that at the railway station as we were going home after the game. Yeah. Or Paul Kelly, he says. We have talked about getting Paul on, I think. Well, why don't you come on the podcast?
Yeah. Anyway, new worlds to conquer, Pete. There's plenty of time for that. That's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. This week. Thank you very much for your company. We'll be back this time next week. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.